talking about wealth building, financial literacy, you said before, nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 100 points. God, love, and moving your credit score 100 points. So can you explain why moving your credit score 100 points is so important? Because most people wouldn't think that 100 points in the credit score is going to be equal to finding God or your wife.
I mean, look, I'll go further than that. If the Vice President Harris had listened to what you're saying and what I'm saying more attentively, she'd be president. Because that election was ultimately not about red or blue or black or white. It was about green. It was about everybody cutting an economic deal. Whether that deal is going to work out or not, we're about to find out. But everybody basically cut a deal, that says, I'm going to do better. You've told me I'm going to do better economically, not morally, not ethically, not societally, not environmentally, not human rights, not civil rights, economically. We live in a capitalist democracy. People forget this. They don't remember this. We live in a free enterprise democracy on a good day. We live in a capitalist democracy on a rough day. But it is unfortunately true that going back to the time of Jesus, we had a choice to make. We could have put our culture we could have put our economy inside of our culture, which is what we should have done. But actually we put our culture inside of our economy. So almost everything is economic in nature. You can't run a church without money. You need tithe and offering. In fact, one of the biggest churches in the world, one of the biggest banks in the world is the Vatican Church, the Vatican Bank. So answering your question, and I've said this as a joke, but I'm serious. You go to the club, today is Monday, you go to the club on Friday, after you worked all week, oh man, she's fine. The lady's like, oh, he's handsome. What's your name? And then what's your credit score? Because that's your business partner for life. The looks are going to fade. The rear end is going, and the breast is going to drop, right? The dude's going to get the big chest going to turn into a big belly at some point. But after 20 or 30 years, that's still your business partner. And those who marry well do the best economically as a side point. But marriage was ultimately even an economic. Before God endowed marriage with spiritual principles, marriage was present 3,000 years before that as a business principle. Yeah. So, I mean, slavery was about money. Nobody brought us 3,000, 6,000 miles away from home, went all through all that trouble because they didn't like us. They did it because we were geniuses of the land. We could take dead soil and bring it back to life. Well, what's the southern soil, which is where all the cotton was, the tobacco, all the gold crops of that time. It was in the southern soil. It was very hot, very humid, whether it's here or the Caribbean. And poor white folks couldn't work it. They're like, oh, we good. We can't handle this. And so they went and found somebody who could not only handle it, but who could take dead soil and bring it back to life, the genius of agricultural excellence, which is what we were in that era. So whatever conversation you want to have, it comes down to money. What's the number one cause of divorce? Money. What's the number one cause of domestic abuse? Money. What's the number one cause for stress? Heart attacks, I'm sorry. Stress. What's the number one cause for stress? Money. What's behind politics? Money. I mean, whatever conversation you want to have comes back to that. So in a world, you've never had now I'm about to drop the mic on your question because you're like, people are like, this guy's rambling. This has to do with my question about credit scores. There's never been a global economy there wasn't never been a superpower that wasn't the economic power at the same time in the history of the world. There's never been a major economy, including the US, or a major city like the city of Atlanta, where I'm at now, that didn't do it on the back of good debt and a great credit rating. I was on the phone with Tony Ressler this morning, who's I don't want to tell his net worth, but it's public information. He's like the 200th richest man in the world. He did it on the back of good debt. No billionaire has become a billionaire except through good debt. No multimillionaire times whatever has done it without good debt. So if your credit score is toe up from the flow up, those who make the least pay the most. If you're in a 500 credit score neighborhood, I mean, the only way to survive that neighborhood is to be in an illegal economy business, because the cost of debt is so high, the cost of credit is so high from Pookie and them and JoJo and them, that you're paying such a high rate. The only way to profit is to do some illegal stuff, right? The underground economy. So you have a check casher next to a payday loan lender next to a rent-to-own store next to a title lender next to a liquor store next to a pawn shop, fast food restaurants, all preying on financial illiteracy, 500 credit score neighborhoods. And you live to 61 years of age as a sort of the insult on top of insult. You live in that neighborhood at 61. 15 minutes away, you live to 81 years old, 20-year difference. And that's a 700 credit score neighborhood. 500 credit score neighborhood, you live to 61. Crime, murder, mayhem, drugs, depression, single parent household. So I over-answered your question, but it was like the question. Like, we have got to get our credit right. The number one lowest credit rating in America group are African Americans. It's like I think it's like
what's the average credit score for African Americans?
I think it's like 620. Now, that sounds like not so bad, but that means that you dudes have a 780 or 800 credit score, and our cousins, JoJo and them, have a 520 or a 480 credit score, and the balance out. The average is that our great credit score combined around all of our friends' toe-up credit score averages out to 620. So it actually sounds better than it really is. It's actually much worse, unfortunately. And the number one group being declined for credit, Black people. Lowest credit score, Black people. One of the biggest economies in the world is, bigger than, you guys talk about this all the time. Our consumer spending is 1.7 and 1.8 trillion, as big as Mexico and Canada, but 92% of that's consumption. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you just combine all these, and our home ownership rate is 41 to 44%, compared to 75% of our white counterparts. Well, the number one way you build wealth is home ownership. I mean, again, this ain't complicated. Then you say, well, what's our net worth in 2053? You combine all these things, zero.
Yeah.
I mean, so you don't need racists to come after you anymore. You don't have to worry about the Klan. You don't have to worry about, what the man's doing to you. What did Malcolm X say? We've been bamboozled. We've been tricked. We've been fooled. We've been hoodwinked, right? So, but this is stuff, one thing I love about credit scores, you can fix it yourself. That's what I love about it. It's self-empowerment at its height. And you do that, and once you have an 800 credit score, you're not Black anymore, you're green. That computer says yes at midnight, whatever you want.